Welcome back, everybody, to the Rec Room podcast with Brian Rector. And today, I was thinking about it, folks. We have episode 15 on the way, which is pretty crazy. I mean, think about it this way. Our first episode, November 1st, and we're sitting here in early January on 15 episodes. I'm really excited about that, and the reception has been amazing, and the conversation has been even more spectacular. And folks, let me tell you something. This episode here came out of the woodwork. So, as many of you know, I'm sure, who will be listening, I've been in touch with Michigan State volleyball and volleyball as a whole in America, watching the collegiate game and seeing things transform. And especially, too, which we'll get into here in a little while, is with conference realignment and all the craziness that's happening in collegiate sports. I took particular notice to those two Bay Area schools that were making the jump to the Atlantic Coastal Conference. Now, how that adds up, I can't tell you, but that's why I'm not paid to know, right? So I'm hearing this and watching this, and I'm seeing the Stanford Cardinal be excellent out there on the volleyball court. And it struck me. It was like they are championed by a setter who has a long list of accolades, which we won't go into the depths of just yet. But we will say that sitting to my, I guess that would be right in the virtual sense, is Cami Miner, who has spent some time in Southern California, spent some time in Las Vegas, Nevada, spent some time out there in Palo Alto, California with the Stanford Cardinal, won three-time setter of the year in two different conferences. I'm not sure that that's ever happened. I would need to check on that, but that's pretty cool. And then as well is a three-time All-American, again in the Pac-12 as well as the ACC. So without further ado, hello, Cami Miner, and thank you for
Hi,
joining me. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm so excited to be here. Yeah.
No, this is really cool. I meant what I said is, and I told you off camera, is like I didn't know anything about the Stanford Cardinal until this season. And I just was so impressed with how you guys were handling business and how things were trending along. And then I was like, I kind of was doing some research and I was thinking about, what it might look like to reach out and everything. And I'm just so thankful that I think I reached out right around Christmas time, and for you to be willing
Yeah.
to engage with me, seeing that response come through, I think maybe I mentioned it in an email correspondence, but for me, I was like, that's the best Christmas present I've ever received is that response from you.
Yeah.
So seriously, it means a great deal that you're here doing it with me, and I'm just very happy to have you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me again. I'm stoked to be here and get to do this.
Yeah, I think one of the things you told me was something that really struck me was you said, any chance that I have to glorify the Lord, right? And give him his due is
Hmm.
something that I would be willing to engage in. And for
Hmm.
me, that struck a chord because it's like, man, we can have these accolades, we can win these things. And then what do we do with it, right? Like, where does it
Yep.
go? How do we reflect it?
Yep.
Can we be that mirror? And I just love the fact that you and I can sit here and have that conversation. But
Hmm.
I want to start off with something, Cami, because we talked about it in the open just initially, but let's go a little bit more in depth. Is
Hmm.
the time that you've spent between Southern California, out there on the coast, Redondo Union High School, and growing up in and around the LA area, and then moving to Northern California. I want to know, before we get into the nitty gritty of things, is
Hmm.
like, do you have a preference for where to be? Are they both home? Like, how would you assess that after a few years in Palo Alto?
Yeah, I think I would definitely at this point, after spending almost 4 years in Palo Alto, I'd consider both places home. I refer to them both as home when I'm talking to people.
Sure.
But I think Southern California definitely has my heart. I really fell in love with it. Getting to spend my high school years there.
Sure.
Um, and I think most people would describe me as a very calm, laid back sort of personality. And I think that that kind of matches my vibe, you could say perfectly. And I was just fortunate enough to have a great experience making that move because that transition, moving and making such a big move from middle school to high school can be really, really almost traumatic, you would say, for some people. But I think I just experienced a lot of growth in my time there, and I was surrounded by a lot of people that really just helped me kind of pave my own path leading up to college in my time at Stanford. In Northern California, for me, getting to go to school here and not be too far from home, it's only like a 5, 6 hour drive for my parents and family members to be able to come up here. I think it was just the perfect balance of being far enough away from home but not, anything that was too hard to deal with, especially with the ups and downs that do come with being a college athlete and just a college kid in general trying to navigate this stage of life.
Hmm, certainly. No, and I think you touched on so many important points through your explanation, and that all checks out with me, particularly about the ups and downs. But I wanted to lead into your time at Redondo Union was fantastic.
Mhm.
From the way of wins and losses, I don't know much more about it, obviously, which is why I gotta ask, is like, how did being in such a program and elevating to the stages of the CIF and uh, you know just high school volleyball as a whole, how did that prepare you for the next level? And then on top of that is like, how would you assess your time in high school now that you're removed enough to where your time in college is done also?
Yeah, I think my time at Redondo, what was interesting is that the reason my family and I made that move from Las Vegas to Southern California was primarily because of my volleyball career and to be able to give me the best opportunity to be successful in that. Just because Southern California is the hub of club volleyball and it has been for a long time. And so we knew that the best opportunity for me to be able to, have an opportunity to play at the highest level of college was going to be making that move in order to not stagnate my growth in any way.
Sure.
And so I had always known how to compete and how to compete hard, and that's a lot. I attribute that to my dad and to both my parents, and just training in Vegas. But I think getting a chance to compete with girls that were so talented and get to look up to players that were going to all these big time schools at my club, and just being in that an environment where girls are really competing hard and they're fighting for scholarships and fighting to, achieve their goals of being college athletes. I think that's something that taught me a lot and it was awesome to be surrounded by people and girls my age that were, essentially wanting to achieve the same thing, especially you know, getting to play with girls that were a lot older than me but we had that mutual respect for one another and we I was able to
Mhm.
develop some really meaningful relationships at that time with all the girls that I played with throughout my time at Redondo in high school. It's a time I look back on so fondly and it makes me feel so old now looking back just because it feels like it was so long ago that I was just a freshman and I met Tommy Chaffins he has the most unreal awesome personality and he just has so much love for the game of volleyball. And so his passion for coaching really just allowed me to feel comfortable kind of, blossoming into the player that I wanted to be. And so I just felt really supported for my time there. And so I learned a lot about competing and in just being a part of a team and learning what that means.
Hmm, certainly, certainly. And especially too, like a lot of what you mentioned, to me, it seems like what you built was the foundation that would then translate into any level that you are to move on to moving
Mhm.
forward. But another thing that I kind of picked out there as you were speaking on it was how you were able to play with so many different ladies who were headed to the next level. Uh,
Mhm.
I'm going searching here. I'm going fishing, I think. But I gotta ask, you played with Noani Yosia, didn't you?
Yes, I did. I
Uh-huh.
did. In
Yeah.
club and in high school.
Sure, 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 sure. See, that we were talking about the small world. That's it right there.
It,
Like,
it really is. Yep.
having just seen her for 4 years and now knowing that she's off to be with Orlando, the Valkyries,
Yes.
and the PVF, just phenomenal. And also, for me, I was listening to you and I was going, yeah, I know one of them.
Yep.
I've worked with one of them. That's super cool. That's
Yep. I love her so much. That's like one of my longest standing best friends. We were
mm,
super close in high school and we still support each other and we talk. Now, I just talked to her recently about a photo we saw from like 5, 6 years ago today of us. goofing around in high school, and so it's awesome to see all the success she's had. I'm just so proud of her and getting to see her like realize her professional
Hmm.
dreams, being a professional volleyball player now. It's something to see and see how time has flown by from then to now.
Yes, yes. I gotta tell you this, Cami. When we were, I think it was, oh, you know what? This is exactly right. It was senior night here at
Hmm.
Michigan. And
Hmm.
obviously, her senior night, along with, I think, shoot, we had seven recognized this year. It was a big
Hmm.
class. But
Oh.
I say that because Mo and Marlene were there. And I
Oh my
had
gosh.
seen them, but I hadn't
Yeah.
had a chance to talk to them ever before. I'm just a lowly broadcaster. I got to
Hmm.
pay my own way. But
Uh-huh.
I was sitting there and kind of transfixed on the celebration and not paying attention to much else. And Mo comes up and taps me on the shoulder and he goes, I
Mhm.
just want you to know it's been really cool to see your growth. And my jaw hit the floor. I went, you
Oh,
did.
that's awesome.
It was amazing. It was
Hmm.
really cool. But I'm glad that you two have that because I
Hmm.
know that as you keep ascending, I'm sure it gets tougher and tougher to kind of keep
Hmm.
that connection and
Yeah.
be in touch regularly. But
Mhm.
to you too, like you're headed to the pro levels. Let's talk a little bit about that because
Mhm.
I know at least what I've been watching, I mentioned to you. Like I've been
Uh-huh.
learning more about the PBS and about LOVB and about the stateside opportunities.
Hmm.
Two things here. One, congratulations for signing with the Tall Volleyball Group. That's epic. That just happened today on January
Hmm.
15th. We saw the release of that. But then as well, you and I were talking a little bit and, feeling like you're headed to an overseas opportunity. So what's happening with your pro kind of stock? Where are you headed next?
Yeah, I just want to say this is great, an opportunity for me to address this because I've been getting DMs and tagged and things of where's she going? Like, why hasn't she signed anywhere yet? But first of all, I know the trend is for a lot of girls after following this past season, their senior season or fifth year season for those who are fifth years to leave immediately and start their professional careers. But for me, that was originally my plan, I'd say, when I came into college. But I think kind of as the course of my career went, I really wanted to stay and finish my degree. And so that is the reason that
Hmm.
I'm still on campus right now. And I'm going to be here until the spring to get my degree because I didn't come into college early. I know a lot of girls, they come in high school and they graduate a semester early to be able to start training and stuff. But
Hmm.
at Stanford, we don't do that. And so to me, that's a huge reason why I came here was to be able to really just enjoy my full experience and just enjoy it for all that it's worth. And so I did end up changing my decision and agreeing to stay until graduation. But I think for one, it's just incredible to be able to have all these opportunities in all these different places to be able to play in. Um, I think I speak for every volleyball player, kind of any age in the United States, but it's a dream. It's been a dream to be able to play professional volleyball in your home country. And so those opportunities are just incredible. And it's been awesome to get to watch the games on TV and see a bunch of friends getting to fulfill their dreams and play professional volleyball here.
Hmm.
And then of course, the best volleyball in the world is in Europe. And so we'll see in the next 2 months or so. I'll probably have announced where I'll be playing next year. But I think it'll definitely be somewhere overseas in Europe. And so I'm really excited and just I feel so blessed to be able to have that opportunity because it's something that I wrote down on all my goal sheets when I first started playing volleyball when I was like 10 years old. And so just to be able to have that opportunity is just something that's incredible. And I'm so excited for that next chapter of my life.
Oh, most definitely. And thank you, by the way, for being willing to share and kind of
Yeah.
fill in the gaps. I know
Yeah.
that's one of the questions that I had for you in a career sense that I really
Hmm.
wanted to hear about is
Hmm.
like, what is happening here? And I was like, there has to be something that I don't know about. And you just
Hmm.
touched on it perfectly, which is that working on finishing the degree. Quick question, what are you studying? Just so I know.
Yeah, I'm an economics major, so that's
Okay.
that's what I'm getting my degree in.
Most certainly, most certainly. And another thing too, Cami, that I really think you just clarified in my own mind is that it's odd to say, and really I'm not sure a great trend if we're being completely honest,
Hmm.
but leaving early, right? And missing out on any terms and semesters and memories and opportunities.
Hmm.
So I have to ask, is like, because I heard this last night too. I was having a
Hmm.
conversation with a friend of mine who played her freshman year at Notre Dame and
Hmm.
then now is headed to New Hampshire.
Hmm.
But that move too is strictly academic. And so
Hmm.
one thing she said to me is that somewhere like Notre Dame is a great marriage of both the academics and the
Hmm.
athletics, and then a brand too. You can say the same thing. In fact, I've always felt like they're kind of in this singular class is Notre Dame and Stanford. So,
Hmm.
what has it meant to you to be a part of an institution that places value on each aspect of what you're doing as a growing young person?
Yeah, it's been incredible, and it's a huge part of the reason why I ended up committing to Stanford because I actually was committed somewhere prior to Stanford when I was in the eighth grade, and I never announced it publicly just because I was so young at the time, and my parents just thought it was for the best to just wait till I was a little bit older. But after a coaching change, I ended up kind of reopening my recruiting process, and so. I took a couple more visits, and my dad had to convince me to take my official visit to Stanford in the fall of my freshman year of high school. But when I got here, I think prior to coming here and getting to kind of be immersed in the environment, I think everyone has kind of preconceived thoughts of what they think Stanford is and how they think the people here are, kind of stuck up, a bunch of smart kids that, think they know it all. Um, but when I visited here, I think the people, especially within the athletic side of it, were just so great and so welcoming. And it was awesome to see just how passionate everyone is in whatever realm of kind of their academic pursuits or athletic pursuits. Um, and it's just that passion is just something it's infectious. And I think I think everyone says it. That's one of the best parts about being here, and you can feel it when you're on campus. But that's something that I was really surprised by, and it allowed me to fall in love with the campus and just everything about it. And so, yeah, I'd say that balance of, being able to pursue whatever it is that you want academically and, compete at the highest level of the athletic side of it is just something that it makes Stanford like no other place. And so,
Mm.
it's been a blessing for sure.
Is there anything about Stanford that you have learned by being there that
Hmm.
us on the outside looking in wouldn't necessarily know? And before you answer, I just wanted to say, a couple of my friends have gone there and gone through, but I
Hmm.
haven't gotten to ask that. So I'm curious, is like, because I think what you said is important, that whether you want to call it a pedestal or the
Hmm.
idea that people have around the university and everything that's happening there, as you said, whether you want to call it stuck up or any term that you use, that's true. Uh, just in the way of that's how people perceive from the outside. So I want to know, like, is there anything that you learned about it that kind of either surprised you or like is something that we all wouldn't know?
Yeah, I think that just because of the prestige of the university, a lot of people think that kind of everyone is just floating at the top, no worries. Everyone is relatively the smartest from where they're coming from in all your classes. And that is true to a degree, but I think just like any other school, people are freaking out all the time about what grades they're getting in class or just normal aspects of life. And I think that's something that doesn't get talked about a lot, just because you have people that are achieving things at such a high level and so frequently that I think it's just so normalized here.
Mm,
And I think that's something that I've learned is that being able to feel confident in what you bring to the table, whatever that is, what I bring to the table is different than the person I'm sitting next to in class is something that's been really cool. And just getting to talk to people here and people who aren't athletes, seeing what they're achieving and just having that mutual respect for what everyone is doing on their own, is something that makes the university so special. And it's something that a lot of people don't get to see or experience unless you're here.
Most definitely. Most definitely. No, I appreciate hearing that,
Hmm.
because it is true, and this actually segues perfectly into the last topic that I wanted to chat with you about,
Hmm.
is accepting that we all are of the same vein, cut from the
Hmm.
same cloth. And
Hmm.
I think that's so pertinent to the kind of the link between you and I is our faith, right? And I wanted
Yep.
to jump into that side of things, is like being as though you are a professed follower of Jesus and
Mhm.
have been outward at times about your faith. Like, talk me through your origin story with faith. Like, how did it come to be? Are you from a family of believers? Like, tell me a little bit about your background.
Yeah, I am from a family of believers, and so I was raised Christian. Both my parents are. And so I had always been kind of immersed in a really supportive culture surrounding my faith. And I think something my parents did a great job of was kind of allowing me and just letting me know that my own personal experiences that I have as I get older at each phase in life is going to shape what my faith becomes. And
Hmm.
so their testimony is not, of course, not going to be what mine is going to develop into. And so I think for me, my faith is it's really deepened in the past few years in college. And so it's something that's been really cool to see, and especially following some of the bigger losses we've had in college, to go to the Final Four the past 3 seasons. I think in the times after that, it's really allowed me to reevaluate what's important. And something for me that's been really eye-opening is just the idea that, God works for everybody. He doesn't, he's not just working in my life. And so everything happens for a reason. And there's so much to take from those losses other than just the glory that comes from winning a volleyball game. And so I just feel so blessed to have experienced my faith getting deeper because of those losses, because I think it's allowed me to realize what I value most, and what I value most about my volleyball career is just the opportunity it's given me to affect other people outside of being on the court. Um, and doing things like this is so special to me just because it gives me a platform to talk about faith in my own testimony that I might not necessarily have if I wasn't an athlete. And so, yeah, that's just a little bit about it.
Certainly, certainly. I think what you just mentioned about losing matches and having the opportunity to just sit there and understand that your identity is separate from
Hmm.
that of being an athlete. Like, is there a moment that you kind of realize, oh my gosh, I am truly more than an athlete? Or was that a slow progression for you? Or how would you assess that?
Yeah, I think it's honestly kind of a I wouldn't say never ending battle, but it's something that I battle against a lot just because
Hmm.
it's hard to not allow volleyball to kind of take over everything in my life just because I spend so much time doing it, especially when we're in season. But I think I first started really realizing that after my sophomore year, that first loss against San Diego to go to the Final Four. That was the first time I'd experienced a loss that hurt to that degree in my career. And so I went through those next few weeks where I was really depressed and it felt like I had nothing else going on in my life. It was the first time I was experiencing winter in college, no volleyball, season's over, and so you have so much more free time on your hands, which is almost a blessing and a curse. But it really allowed me to just kind of just realize that life is so much bigger than volleyball, and God's grace extends so much further than just success on the volleyball court. And so for me, it's interesting because especially in the past month or so, especially since this past season, my senior season has ended. Um, I've just really been kind of focused on the idea that the talents that God has blessed us with, they are all meant to glorify Him,
Hmm.
and just no matter how hard we work to achieve certain things, it's always God that's let us have it and be successful. through the grace that he's shown us. And so for me, returning to that idea that the talents that, I've been blessed with, are meant to glorify him, above all else is something that has really put me at peace with my career and through all the ups and downs of it. And so it's been really cool to have take that time to be able to, spend time thinking about that.
Yes. Yes, and especially too, like this is something I was just thinking about as you were finishing up your thought, is being a setter particularly gives you a
Mhm.
great opportunity to be a leader on the floor. As well, I presume, maybe I'm making an assumption, but off the floor as well with the
Mhm.
program and building a culture.
Mhm.
I was wanting to know is like, okay, how has bringing Jesus into the equation allowed you to flourish in that role of being a leader and being in control of things, both on the court and off the court? And what has that been like for your actions and behaviors with others that have presumably helped build the culture that we know to be true about Stanford volleyball?
Yeah, I think that for me in the position that I'm in, the setter position, it comes with a lot of pressure, especially um just because of the caliber of a program that Stanford is and the history, all the history that surrounds it. And so for me, I think there's no way I would have been able to deal with that pressure without relying on my faith, especially being in so many big moments and having to make big plays. It can be a lot and be very overwhelming. And especially, as a setter, I feel like you feel responsible for everything that's happening on the floor, whether it's your fault or not. And so just leaning on that faith in being able to feel comfortable and vulnerable, leaning on my teammates and vice versa has been something that's been a game changer, I think, for the culture of the program. And I think our senior class coming into this season, knowing where we would be having a very different lineup with a lot of new people, new faces that were going to be on the court. I think that's something we discussed a lot amongst ourselves and with our coach was the culture we wanted to create and how we wanted to change it from years prior. And I think allowing ourselves to be vulnerable has been a massive, massive aspect of that. And it's a reason we were so successful and way more successful than I think anyone in the country thought we would be this year is because we really had to just look at ourselves and really get honest and get honest about what we wanted to achieve. And just what scares us about the season, what scares us about coming in with a new group, all of that is stuff that had to be addressed. And so it just allowed us to in big moments be able to rely on one another, and just really deepen the bond that we had with one another. I think it's something that you can see watching our team and that anyone will say is that our staff and the girls this year, it was just kind of another level of closeness and in friendship that we were able to achieve, which is something that is so special and made this year so special to me, regardless of how the season ended, is because of that culture we created. And so it definitely took some work, but we created something we were proud of in the end.
Cami, your answers a few different times have made my job really easy. Thank you for being as thorough as you are, and
Thank you.
meticulous too. Yeah, seriously. But
Hmm.
there were two things that I want to highlight out of what you just mentioned. The first is that I felt like, and this was weird for me, I had mentioned to you that I'm relatively new to learning the sport of volleyball and getting into it and learning more about the program. But I had always known that Stanford is one of the kind of beckoning lights of college volleyball.
Hmm.
But as I was watching more matches this year, I was hearing more terminology and kind of sentences and thoughts from the announcers and from other pundits that would make you think that Stanford Cardinals' success this season was maybe not predicted or maybe like outshining what people had expected. And all those details that you just mentioned to me, it really ties it together. I get it. I'm like, okay, I start to see how that all works. That's super
Yeah.
cool. That makes a lot of sense to me. And the other thing too is, oh gosh, I just lost my train of thought. That's oh my gosh, we had somewhere else to go with that too. Um, ah, well, I'm gonna edit that out. That's really funny. Um, Wow. Hmm. That's like super embarrassing. I did
Oh,
not
all
show up
good.
for that moment. Uh, oh my gosh, there it is. Wow. That just took a second too long. Being that we experience with the Stanford Cardinal a new journey and uncharted territory, not
hmm
only with the new players that you were integrating, but then
hmm
a new conference and a new travel schedule. And like, what are your thoughts about realignment that's happened and about the scope of collegiate sports as we know them? Because they're changing, and presumably they're going to be changing, year over year from this point forward.
Yeah, it's honestly it's insane, and it's insane to see all this change happening while you're in college and you're playing. But I think for one, the conference realignment, it's something that honestly it was very difficult, especially as you can imagine the travel and the time change.
Hmm.
Um, and that was just something that was a huge part of it that was very difficult because we don't charter consistently like a lot of other top programs do. And so you're spending a lot of hours in the airport, long
Sure.
flights, and getting into the East Coast late at night, practicing late, and then potentially being up, having to be up early for a game the next morning. But I think as a team, we addressed it a lot beforehand of how we were going to approach it, and the only way we could approach it and be successful in that was being optimistic and just taking every moment for what it's worth and recognizing that it's going to be difficult at times. It's going to be difficult to balance, but we're in it together, and it's only going to make us stronger come time for the tournament. And it honestly it ended up being really cool, at least for me in my last year, to be able to get to travel to a bunch of new campuses. Just see new environments and places that I haven't necessarily been. And so it almost felt like the entire season was an extended preseason where you're traveling out of conference because every single game essentially felt like it was out of conference
Sure.
for us. But it was really exciting, and the competition in the ACC is it's incredible. And so there was never a dull moment for our team, and so we were able to really feel prepared in terms of going from the tournament or going from the ACC conference to the NCAA tournament. And then just otherwise, it's interesting to see the change in college athletics in general from Stanford and being at Stanford because in a lot of ways Stanford has remained the same in that we can't get a lot of transfers, and there's not a you don't have a lot of chaos here in kind of that regard. And of course with NIL being introduced and how it's just exploded in the past couple of years too, just changing the game. But it's just cool to see just players have more opportunity to, just move and play where they want to play and get to experience whatever atmosphere and value they place on where they go. And it's been incredible to just see it explode. I couldn't have imagined that volleyball specifically would have exploded like this, especially in this past year or two. Um, so I'm just glad I got to be a part of it. It's really cool to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, if you don't mind, could we do a rapid fire segment before we get
Oh
out of here?
yeah, for
Perfect.
sure.
Perfect. 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 This is something I've been thinking about. I'm not sure, frankly, what I'm going to call it yet. I'm still thinking about that.
Yeah,
But here we
awesome.
go. Just got a couple questions in line
Okay.
that I'm thinking about and that I'm stewing over and that I hope will be enjoyable to you.
Yeah, for sure.
So the first thing, Cami, is alongside with, well, actually, here's some history for you. My first ever podcast was with
Mhm.
Michigan State setter Julia Bishop. That happened
Mhm.
September of 2023. My podcast today, obviously, with you. And then my podcast that I'm doing tomorrow is with Logan Case, who just finished up at
Okay.
Western Michigan.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask, like, what makes a setter great?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is the impact that you have on your teammates. I think as a setter, you have so much power, obviously, over what's happening on the court, and you're the facilitator. But I think that relationship that you have with your teammates as a setter, I think that's what makes the best setter special. And I think it's something that I prided myself on is developing those relationships with people that I can rely on in the biggest moments because pressure is real and everyone feels it. And so I think as a setter, your job is to be able to, continue to facilitate kind of growth in every facet of the game, not just playing and setting balls in the literal sense, of course, but off the court and making sure that everyone is kind of growing and on the same page. And so I think that's to me what makes the best setters very
Hmm,
special.
most certainly. If you could play volleyball anywhere in the world, where would you play?
I would definitely play in Italy. I think that's been my dream since I was a little kid, and
Hmm,
of course the culture there. There's
yeah,
there's really no place in my mind that's better to be.
that's right. That's right. Do you have any favorite verses or stories from the Bible?
Yeah, I think something I've been kind of returning to a lot recently has been the parable of the gold bags. And I think for me in Matthew, I can't it's 20 something, but I can't remember the specific number.
Sure, sure.
But just the idea that God has given us talents and given us abilities, and it's our job to not be lazy and not kind of just sit and waste those talents to really get out and use them for
Yeah.
all their work to bring glory to him. And I think it's something that it's just really inspiring to me. And it really allows me to just it keeps my perspective in check in terms of what my purpose and my role is as a volleyball player is to glorify him.
Hmm. If there was a next step of faith that you were to take, what would that be?
Yeah, I think just spreading his word as much as possible and just really utilizing the platform I have, especially in these next months that I have where I'm not insanely busy. And I think I'd say just continuing to prioritize him more in my life, regardless of how busy it is. That's not an excuse, and just continuing to give grace to him or give thanks to him just in every situation that I'm in.
Last one here, Cami. If you could describe your Stanford career in one word, what would that be?
Ooh, one word. I think. I think I would say unpredictable. I think that would be the word I would
Hmm.
use.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. While you were answering, I was thinking about it, and I got it.
Yeah.
I think I know the name for this show or this
Oh,
this segment here.
yeah.
Rolling Loud on the Rec Room. Yeah,
Oh, I love that.
there we go.
That's
Perfect.
perfect. That is perfect.
But Cami, thank you so much for doing this. That's about all I have. The last thing, though, that I really wanted to just mention and say thank you to you, but also give you the floor for any shout outs or things you wanted to mention before we get done here.
Yeah, I'll shout out my family, just because, the origination of my faith is it's due to them. And so they've kept me so grounded just in my career and my journey through life. And I'm just so blessed to have them, and I'm so grateful to them for that and for all of the support. And then I'll shout out my teammates and my coaching staff at Stanford as well. They've just been so supportive in lifting me up and supporting me throughout this journey here, all 4 years from the second I stepped on campus. And so it's made my time very special. And just reflecting on my time here, it just there's nothing but great memories and just gratitude from my end. So I'm so happy to have gotten to do this and be here and hopefully just share more about my journey with people.
Most definitely. Well, Cami, I'm really excited to keep watching and see what's next for you. I just want to tell you once more because truly I can't say it enough. Thank you for being willing to do it. And I hope that all of y'all out there enjoyed the conversation because I know I sure did. And that's been episode 15 of The Rec Room with Brian Rector. And today, Cami Mina.